Welcome back to the Parent-Child series by Manha Wellness. My name is Kashish. I'm the moderator and host for today. We have Dr. Amrita Panda with us for the session today. She is a rehabilitation psychologist with PhD. She is the founder and managing director of Deep Ranjani Foundation. She has an experience in dealing with individuals with special needs and family counseling. We are very much honored to have you with us, Dr. Amrita, and we can't wait for your session to begin on healthier coping strategies for adolescents. So all this while in the previous sessions, we have talked about how the parent-child relationship can be improved. And continuing with the same aspect, we will be talking about some coping mechanisms, healthy and unhealthy. And over to you, Dr. Amrita.
Thank you, Kashish. A very good evening to all the viewers. And thank you to Mana Wellness for this wonderful opportunity and selecting this wonderful topic for the viewers. So we will be talking about coping strategies, but a coping strategy doesn't come into existence unless we talk about stress. So we all know, and after the last 2.5 years, it was an overwhelming life experience for all of us across the globe, where we were stressed out like anything. So when COVID started during the beginning of the 2021, it was like something, it was a situation which was unknown to us. We didn't know what was COVID. So that was something unknown that turned our life upside down. And we were threatened by the new challenges of our lives, and we had to define a life which is completely new in our practices, in our ways of thinking about it, in our ways of coping with it. So talking about a stress can be anything that comes across our lifespan in different shapes, different forms, which impacts our quality of life. And that can impact our behavior. It can impact our psychological processes. It can impact our coping strategies. It can impact, the entire quality of life, our entire existence. It can impact our work quality. It can impact anything and everything in a person's life. So when we say we are stressed out, so what usually happens? So when we say we are stressed out, it means we often feel very irritated. We are not so certain about life. We have confusion. We lack sleep. We tend to get tired very easily. We feel confused. We feel blue. We do not know we do not have a proper direction in our life. And overall, the situation is we are completely messed up. And that happens so often. It happens in every single sphere of our life. So here we are talking about parents. So we are talking about how parents are going to deal with stress and what are the kind of coping strategies which are supposed to serve them in most wonderful way, particularly when they are dealing with their children or their family members. So, Kashish, will this slide change?
The slide is not visible.
It's not
visible. You have
visible?
to present, yeah.
Oh, okay, sure.
And yes, we were talking about how things and times have changed in COVID for everyone, especially with children staying at home. That's very rightly put.
Yeah. So we have been talking about stress, and we have been talking about the signs of stress, identifying stress. I'm so sorry. The physical signs of stress, as I already mentioned, and the behavioral signs, we are unable to concentrate on in our work. We are unable to we are feeling very depressed. We are not being able to invest ourselves totally in any activity. And then there are emotional signs. At times, we are so stressed out, we feel jittery. We feel like crying every single time. So these are extreme emotional signs. We feel extremely impatient dealing with the situation, while dealing with the environment. So these are the different ways we understand that we are under a lot of stress. So things get messed up. Now, when we talk about stress, all of us know that there is an amount of stress in everything that we do. Say, when we are working in our professional environment, we have a lot of workload. That is also stress. And many of us realize that we work better, more efficiently, more effectively when we are under pressure. So that is also stress, but in this particular situation, the stress is serving us on a positive note. So this is called eustress. So this is something which is serving our life in a positive direction. But mostly stress, it impacts our life in a negative way. It can be acute stress. It can show up all of a sudden, and it can jeopardize our life all the way. It can be a chronic stress. When we say chronic stress, it means that it's there for a long time. It's impacting our life at different capacities, at different intensities, and the different domains of our life in a different way. And when we say episodic acute stress, that means it comes in episodes. So I get stressed out when I'm in a doctor's clinic. So whenever I go back to a doctor's clinic, I feel stressed out. So that's an episodic stress. So there can be different types of stress. And why this is important to understand the nature of stress, it's because the kind of coping strategies that we are going to use is different for every kind of stress, the nature of stress. I'm sure when it's a eustress, we would love to be there. We won't really like to come out of it because it's serving us in a positive way. So
Yeah.
these are the different types of stress that we usually face in our life, day-to-day life.
I was just, wondering if,
Yeah.
going back to the previous slide, if we can, you can give our audience an example of how stress can go from acute to intense, right? So,
Yes.
if you can explain in the aspect of children, and
Right,
yeah.
right. So in case of children, many a times we observe the children, they get stressed before an exam, and it comes back every time they are about to write an exam. And that is an episodic acute stress. And many a times, even before the exam, while they realize that they are not prepared at all, so they completely, it happens, it's very common experience among the parents that they feel completely shut down. They feel like whatever I do now, I'm not going to make it. So they are so stressed out that they can't even do whatever they are supposed to do to write that test in an effective way. So this is an acute stress. But if we do not address this stress condition in a scientific way, in a proper way, what happens is that this acute stress, this momentary, this episodic stress, it kinds of very gradually takes a very regular occurrence, and it comes back every now and then through different activities, through different life situations. When we do not address this component of being under stress before an exam, what happens is the self-esteem, the confidence of the child, it goes down. And when the confidence and esteem goes down, it automatically affects the other areas of the child's life. And he may start feeling that while I'm playing in the ground, while I'm competing with my peer group, I may not do well in today's game. So that is the time when it gets into the other areas of the child's life. And it takes the shape of a chronic stress.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
it could be the same stress traveling from acute to chronic, or it could be
yes,
the added things in a
added
child's
things,
life.
yes,
Yeah.
depending on the exposure of the child and depending on the management the child is receiving
Mm.
while it comes to stress, be it
Of
from the
course.
parents or a professional or the teachers, whatever it is.
Yes, I think one very good point that you mentioned is the management. That we, of course, we are
Right.
covering that a lot in this session today. Okay. That thank you for explaining that. I hope
Yes.
that helps the parents who are hearing us.
Right. And Kashish, while you mentioned the management term, I think that is the whole purpose of today's discussion,
Yes.
that many a times and most of the times we overlook such situations and we try to console ourselves that these things are very normal, very common. So we do not address
Mhm.
it with
Yeah.
due diligence. And these things starts I mean, these things continuously comes back in different circumstances and it takes a chronic shape.
Yes.
So from
I
there, the
think very
management,
small to begin with is कि ये कोई stress है. That's the bare minimal a child for a child it is the parents say it or probably whosoever they are in touch with. So
right,
it begins from right there. The management begins from right there.
right, identification of stress.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
So we move to the next part, the sources of stress. So I'm sure all of us are aware of it, but it's wonderful to have a look at it in this platform and get it consolidated in a way. So, of course, the first source that we are going to talk here is the negative thoughts or feelings about ourselves. So, when the kids they perceive themselves the way the society, particularly the parents perceive them, they feel inadequate when they continuously hear from the parents that they are not doing as good as the other kid in his class. So this negative thought or negative feeling about themselves can lead them to a zone where they can be extremely stressed out with their self-esteem issue, with their self-confidence issues, where they may not be able to do the best use of their potential because they already have a negative feeling that they are not good enough. So that is the first thing. Next is, of course, in a child's life, and of course, we are talking about adolescence here. So, in case of adolescence, when the puberty sets in, the change in the whole body structure, this is something very new. They are not used to these changes. They are not used to a different voice.
Yeah.
They are not used to the signs and symptoms of puberty. Their body speaks a different language at that point of time. So they are extremely confused. They do not have a proper guidance how to deal with these changes. Then the school demands and frustrations. These days, I'm sure with the onset of NEP 2020, the whole education system is going to be revamped.
Yeah.
But the usual school structure, the amount of academic pressure and work pressure, homework, it's too much. And it's for all the students in the class, irrespective of their intelligence, irrespective of their emotional quotient, irrespective of their socio-cultural support. So at times it's too much for some of the kids. Problems with friends and peers at school, of course. Adolescence is the time when the real friendships start. So a lot of interactions, a lot of new things, a lot of new topics, a lot of new discussions, and a lot of conflicts.
Yes.
So, and the fact whether a child is accepted by the peer group or not, whether he is a part of the group, whether he is the focus of the group, whether he is the person who stays away from the group, it makes a lot of difference in the life of the individual, and this can bring in a lot of stress in life.
Which
Unsafe,
Yeah, which reminds me, very recently I've heard, some of the children in my neighborhood coming and telling me with this combination of changing in bodies and the acceptance, I am not as pretty, or I'm not as beautiful as some other person in the school, because I'm not accepted. Probably you're a little, you because everybody is different and unique, so they are not accepting. Do you think that combination has become very common in these
That
days, and this pressure?
combination is very common, and more than that, that this combination is very dangerous,
Yeah, and
because as a society, we do not practice self-love, and it's a very dangerous situation.
and I think it's a lot of it is being influenced, like we have talked, just not school that demands the acceptance, but also from the validation around the social media. That's being an added. I think it's just a cherry on the cake of what all struggles we have been
Right.
through.
And even more than social media, I would like to mention here the validation from parents.
Parents,
So
yes.
expectation of parents from their kids,
Mm,
projection of parents towards
yeah,
their kids,
absolutely.
whatever they couldn't do in their life, as if it's the duty of the kid to fulfill it.
Yeah.
So the validation part is something very important, which they always look forward to, because they are young and they do not know how to
Mm,
be acceptable to people around them.
mm,
So they end up looking for this validation from peer group, from family, from parents, from everywhere. So that is definitely another huge source of stress. Then, of course, unsafe living environment and neighborhood, because when we are talking about adolescents, we are talking about adolescents across culture. There can be different socioeconomic backgrounds. There can be different living conditions. There can be the next point, which is coming separation or divorced parents. So there can be a child can live with a single parent. A child may not have access to either of the parents in their regular day-to-day life. So these are conditions, these are some areas where the needs of the children, it's not fulfilled, and that creates a lot of confusion, leading their way to the stress situation, stress symptoms and behaviors. So then again comes the next thing, which is definitely a huge challenge for children, that is chronic illness or severe problems in the family. So today, I mean, these days, the families are mostly nuclear. Even then, in a nuclear family, when the number of members are really small, if there is a person who is suffering from chronic illness or a severe problem, that can be a real challenge for a child or an adolescent, because they do not know, they do not understand the meaning of chronic illness, the needs of the chronic illness person, and the uncertainty of future. They love this person, but they do not know what is going to happen with this person, and they feel extremely. It's an extremely volatile mental health condition that they live in, which can also invite a lot of stress. And of course, along with chronic illness comes the death of a loved one. I think which we have faced, I mean, very intensely in last 2.5 years. We have seen the world the way we never did. And this is something that can bring in, and we all know that all of us are going through some kind of stress out of this particular area at this moment.
mm,
And then, of course, comes the moving or changing school, when the parents have a transferable job, or a school which is not serving the child, we try to change it. So at that point of time, it becomes very difficult, leaving the friends, leaving the known environment, leaving the very loving teachers, and then adjusting to a new framework, which can be very demanding for a child or an adolescent. Then comes the taking on too many activities or having too much of expectation. These days, we find out that we see that parents engage the kids in too many activities. They want their kids, all of us want our kids to be jack of all trades. So we want them to dance like SRK, we want them to sing like perhaps whoever it is, Arijit Singh, and we want them to, and
we
we
want
want
them
them
to
to be
excel in each field.
each and every
Perfect.
field, each
Yes.
and every field. So that's a lot of burden. We many a times we fail to care that what the child actually wants to do.
Mm.
What is the exact area where he or she feels connected? What is it that matters in his life? So we, as a habit, we get them into a lot of activities, and that can turn out to be too overwhelming for them. And
Right.
of course, the family financial problems, that is definitely a key reason of stress. And during this COVID, we have seen huge ups and downs in the financial sector of the whole world, and many families have suffered through this crisis. And it's the children who perhaps suffer the most because they cannot process the condition in a pragmatic manner. They suddenly, the availabilities in their life suddenly reduces, and they cannot connect it to the realistic world because they do not have so much of information. They do not have so much of emotional or intellectual faculty to understand whatever is going around. So, to summarize, these are the areas where, in an adolescent or a child's life, a lot of stress factors can come up, and it can cause conditions of immediate stress. It can cause conditions of very long-term stress. It can cause something which can shift to a psychological condition eventually.
Mm.
So we will
Yeah.
move to the next.
There's a question in the chat box,
Yeah.
Dr. Amrita. So someone wants to know how to initiate a conversation when my child is going through stress or is feeling distressed.
Right. Wonderful question. Thank you for your question. So, I believe the best way to initiate a conversation is that many times we think too much that how to approach this situation, how to talk about it, how to, we try to plan the conversation. But I believe it's always better to be extremely simple. When you have confusion, just walk to the child, just sit with him or her and ask her what exactly is happening, what exactly is bothering you. And it's not about the simplicity, just the simplicity of the question. It's also about your body language, when you are asking the question, the tonality of your voice. It should be compassionate, it should be understanding, there should be acceptance in your approach so that the person feels safe. Unless the person feels safe, he is not going to open up. So I always believe in very simple approach of asking the child if he is a kid. You can also take him in your arms and ask him what is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm
And
I'm
then,
here. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help
right,
you out. What is wrong? There
the
is no
compassion to
need.
receive.
Right. There is no need of going through very complicated processes or mechanism. Just be simple. Just be natural. I think that is fantastic. That works wonderful.
Thank you. I hope whosoever asked gets help. Just be as simple as possible and receive whatever they are giving with the compassion,
Right.
with
Right.
more simplicity and with open arms. I mean, that also helps in building further trust if the child wants to talk, and you probably
Right.
won't even think twice. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kashish. And I would like to add one thing in that question, that when you are asking someone what exactly is happening to him, please do not be judgmental when he comes up with a reply. Please do not give him the feeling that whatever he's going through, it's nothing, or it is something. It's not something worth discussing of. So whatever it is, it's very important to the child. So give it due importance. Do not just be judgmental as per your experience and everything. So I wanted to add that.
Avoid invalidating whatever bothers them, because that if that is bringing them stress, definitely that's stressful for them, and we are nobody to compare, like Dr. Amrita said. So have that compassion in responding to whatever they answer. Thank
Right.
you. So we can move ahead.
Thanks, Kashish. So, as we mentioned, I think we are coming from there, straight from there only. So, the unhealthy coping strategies. We are now going to talk about the coping strategies. Before going to the acceptable coping strategies, we will be touching upon the unhealthy coping strategies, because I think many a times we keep on repeating the same mistake of dealing with the situation in a way that eventually enhances the stress for the person. So the first thing is denial, imagining that as if the situation is not there, it's not present, it's not there, it's not happening to me. So this denial, just when we mentioned this, we were answering this question, when the child is saying something and you feel that this is not something, this cannot be a cause of a huge amount of stress. Do not uh, do not invalidate his experience. Do not deny his suffering. So the first thing is denial is never a good strategy. It's always the more we keep us open, the way more we keep our acceptance open, we tend to understand the person in front of us in a better way. The second coping strategy, which is very important, and many of us follow this strategy on a regular basis, is isolation. When I'm stressed out, I close my doors, I stay back home, I do not meet with people, I do not interact. So, this is something very deadly. So, isolation is once again a very difficult coping strategy wherein we accumulate the amount of stress during isolation. We cannot express ourselves, we cannot work on ourselves and the real situations that is causing stress to us. So isolation is something very, very difficult. Then comes the substance abuse. When we are talking about adolescence, and it's a new world, and the kids have access to a lot of things which our generation can't even think of. So they have access, even if we feel that there is no such access in his school or in his peer group, I'm sure we are wrong, because it's so common these days. So it's very important to understand that substances are not solutions of stress. It can help to have a high moment for a high for a couple of moments, maybe a couple of hours. But then again, it can increase the stress, I mean, multiplied by 100 times when we keep on using these substances over and over again. It can increase the stress level to a significant extent. And then the behavioral misconduct, which is another unhealthy coping strategy. Say when we are very angry, when a child is angry, he starts throwing tantrums, and he starts doing things which he is not supposed to do. So these are the things, these are the behavioral misconducts which he gets into to to supplement the difficulties, the stress, the negative condition that he is in. We tend to do things, say, I'm feeling extremely stressed out, and then as a behavior, I do something, I'm really shouting at people around me. That is not something acceptable. So many a times, even parents, when they understand that their kids are under stress, they start scolding them. So scolding won't help. It's not a healthy coping strategy. It's not going to benefit the kid, and it's not also going to benefit the parent. So this is not a healthy coping strategy either for the parent or for the child. So then comes the behavioral addiction, which is, I would say, it's a pandemic of our times. That when we are stressed out, we start playing video games and the mobile games these days, and maybe we start chatting. We uh, invest ourselves to the web series. So these are the addictive behaviors that we try to get into to substitute the stress condition. So we feel it's a component of denial and behavioral addiction at the same time. When we get into this addictive behaviors, we feel like that the stress is not there, it's not present. So it's
Right.
denial and the addiction at the same time.
Hmm.
And it's okay to stay out of the stressful moment by watching a TV series, by playing a video game or something like that. But when it becomes an addiction, then you systematically avoid the stress factor, the reason behind it, and the consequences of it. And that starts impacting our quality of life. So this behavioral addiction can be, and this is so pertinent to our day-to-day life in this particular era, because this is adopted so rampantly by people around us, by the kids, by the parents as well.
And it's
And
easier access again.
very
Very,
easy, very
very.
easy, very easy. And then comes the projection. So we try to, it's a habit of human mind uh, when they are under a lot of stress, they try to project their own stressful experience, a stressful condition to the person in front of them or to a situation which is there in front of the person. So they start perceiving every single activity in the light of the stress that they are going through. So that is called projection, and that is something which makes life even more difficult. And when we are talking about these unhealthy coping strategies, these unhealthy coping strategies might be taken up by the children, by the adolescents, and by the parents as well. So I think this is helpful for both the groups.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that this strategies, this can potentially impact the quality of the life of an individual.
I
So
think in
from
the very first session when we were taking, so the first speaker that we had, she made it very loud and clear to the parents. Don't worry, your child is not listening to you. Worry because the child is watching you. So these I also tend to believe that whatever coping strategies we develop as children are somewhat mirrored from our parents. What we see,
absolutely,
we take it
absolutely,
and we do it. We're obviously winging it in our own ways today, but some of it is coming from what we have seen. So
right.
this is
And
important for both the parties.
and Kashish, I feel that most of it is coming from what we see during our early years.
Exactly.
That forms our personality. So
Exactly.
it's a lot of importance. The healthier, if the healthier coping strategies are adopted by the parents, that helps the kids, the adolescents, a lot in forming their personality as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I think all of you who are hearing us, this is important before we blame the child for anything that they are doing probably that is wrong and unhealthy. Of course, we're going to talk about the healthy things, but please have a slight check on your own selves as well. Where is it probably coming from, and what do I do when I'm stressed?
Right.
Yeah.
So now we will be talking about the healthy coping strategies. So what are the things that we can do when we feel stressed out? So of course, the first thing that we will be focusing is the well-being of the self. That how can we deal with stress? Of course, exercise is something that the whole world is talking about, and by exercise, definitely yoga is also a form of exercise. Dancing can be a form of exercise, but whatever it is, it has to drain your energy at least for that half an hour, 45 minutes or 1 hour. It has to drain the energy. It cannot be just stretching. Stretching is extremely useful for your mind and body. But when we say exercise, it means it should drain your energy to a significant extent. So in stress, exercise is something that helps stress a lot. It helps to deal with stress a lot. And of course, the eating habit, we pay very little importance to food. We tend to eat mindlessly. We eat whatever we get to it. But it's important to understand our eating habit. And as an adult, we need to we need our kids to be mindful about eating. And that's a practice that we can start from very early childhood. So, of course, to deal with stress, exercise and eating regularly. And of course, get enough sleep and have a good sleep. So, it's very common in today's world that the kids go to bed very late. Either they cannot complete their homework, or they are watching TV, it's their me time, or they get to meet the parents during the late hours. Whatever it is, it's very important that they get a good amount of sleep and good quality of sleep. So sleeping is something, unless we rest our body, we won't be able to use the faculties that we already have got. So it's very important to sleep. Avoid excessive caffeine, which can increase the anxiety and agitation. All of us know that caffeine, tannin, too much of all these can actually increase the stress and anxiety in our body. So it's better to avoid it. And then comes the relaxation exercises. Of course, in today's world, we are talking about mind-body synchronization. And when we talk about medical treatment, we talk about medications, but medications, they treat symptoms. They cannot treat the reason behind those kind of ailments. So it's very important that we connect our body with our mind and we learn to relax our body uh, at times, at least. And I met a doctor. I would like to share a personal experience here that I met a doctor once in my life. So he taught me that how to, as if he taught me to imagine there is a clock inside your body and it's very loud. It's emitting very loud sound. Try to dial it down. So when we talk about relaxation, it's not just about doing relaxation activities like doing meditation, doing yoga, doing healing. It's not like that. It's a practice that you can do through every single thing in your body, in your day. So it's like dialing down the hypersensitive reaction of your body and reach a state where you can relax yourself. And of course, the thing that comes, which is a wonderful thing and which is a real challenge for all the parents, that is reduced screen time.
Yes.
So when we are talking about COVID, when we are talking about this new world, we have the screen time has increased significantly. But if we look at more closely, we will find that if we plan it out correctly, we can reduce the screen time. It's very important. It's very important to understand that it reduces our intellectual faculty. It reduces our attention span. It brings in, it incorporates a lot of stress factors. So it's not just our eyes are getting stressed, our minds are getting stressed. So there has to be an end.
I
There
think there's a
cannot
very
be,
well point. There's a
yes,
very well point made that intellectual abilities are hampered with excess use
right,
of screen time.
right, right. So we move to the next part of the coping strategy.
Yes, there's a question in the chat
Yeah,
as we switch. How can I help my child unlearn the unhealthy coping mechanisms?
that's a wonderful question. Uh, when a child has already got into an unhealthy coping mechanism, the situation is slightly difficult here. So it is possible that the parent has to seek advice from a mental health professional that will be more scientific. And the person can help you to unlearn the coping strategy, unlearn the coping, negative coping strategies, unhealthy coping strategies, and substitute it with a healthy coping strategy. But then As a parent, what I would suggest is if you feel that the person has taken up an unhealthy coping strategy, it's always good to talk to the child how this unhealthy coping strategy is not serving him in a positive direction. Please do not underestimate kids. At times they're grown up even more than the adults. They understand a lot of things that we do not expect them to understand. Don't underestimate them. So talk to them. So try to understand how the unhealthy coping strategy is serving the child, why he has adopted that particular coping strategy. So there must be something that he is getting by adopting that particular strategy. So when you can substitute the same thing which he is looking for with a healthy coping strategy and you can explain it to him, he will be convinced that this particular thing is going to give him a better quality of life. And when he gets rewarded by using the healthy coping strategies from the parents, that will he will be more inclined to use the healthy strategies compared to the unhealthy strategies.
Right.
Okay, so the first step would be understanding how the unhealthy strategies are serving this particular person. That is the most important thing, and only then you can substitute it with a healthy strategy.
I think that's very well put. That if the child has developed something unhealthy, there's a reason which is being satisfied by that. So we need to figure that out, and then probably we can switch to a healthy one. Or it's always a better way to go to a professional, seek help with such situations, because parents are not everything. They can't just do everything, and they need to realize that it's very important. Thank you for answering that. I hope it helped to whosoever asked.
Yes, and we move to the next section, which is the most important part of coping strategy, that working on our psychological framework. As a society, we are born with certain cultural perspectives, certain practices, and we cannot deny it. We are not out of it. We have grown up with these practices around us. The first thing is, and which is more important, which is more relevant for a girl child, the practice of assertiveness. We are not taught to say no when we want to say no. So it's very important as a parent to make the child understand that when to say, I mean, voice his opinion when he or she doesn't feel like doing something, and when we say it, and the child starts voicing his opinion in each and everything, it's very important as a parent to respect it and to reach that balance while interacting with the kid through this turmoil while he's being assertive about every single thing in his life or in her life, to reach a balance where he understands how assertiveness is serving him in a better way in his life. There will be a turmoil initially. He will be a rebel, she will be a rebel. That is
Yes.
the characteristic of the age.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's important and respect the assertiveness. If the child says that he doesn't want to eat Karela today, it's okay. I mean, accept him. You need not to accept that every single day, but when he's voicing his choice, accept it. It's important to show respect to the choice. So it's very important for us, the parents, to teach the kids to voice their preference, to voice their choice. It's very important, particularly to the girl child, because in our society, the boys, they learn to be assertive in the social cultural framework that we are in, but the girl children, we still are under that aura that they are born to serve humanity. So it's very important to teach them very aggressively that to be assertive.
Hmm.
And then, of course, the practical coping skills learning. So there are large, maybe there is something, an issue in your life, there is a situation in your life. If we can break it down in smaller parts, if we can address each part one at a time, and then think about, reach the bigger picture. So we are not considering the whole situation as one. We are breaking it in parts, and we are uh, trying to trying to deal with each of the parts separately, thereby addressing the whole in a certain point of time. So it's very important to break things down uh, and address it separately.
Yeah.
And then comes another thing, which is a component of a socio-cultural perspective. It's understanding boundaries. It's very important when we are stressed out, say in an office environment, an individual is saying that he is extremely stressed out by the workload that he has been given. But it's very important for all of us to say no after a certain point of time. You cannot take my personal time after 7:30 or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 6:30. So it's very important to understand boundaries. And when we are saying understand boundaries, we also talk about understanding for an adolescent and a child, we're understanding the good touch and the bad touch, the understanding of proximity, understanding of physical distancing. It's very important to have this sorted out with a child by parents. It's a must thing that we should indulge into when they approaches adolescence, and maybe as a child also, because concept of privacy and concept of boundaries can be incorporated from an early age as a child itself.
Absolutely.
And then comes the work on perspectives. When we talk about coping strategies, we perceive a situation in a certain way, and then when we talk to another person, we see a different point of view of the same situation, of the same scenario. And when we see it from a different angle, we can see different way outs. We can see different solutions to that condition. So that is working on perspective. Maybe I am fixated to my perspective. I'm fixated to the way I'm looking at the situation. So it's very important. And by consulting a mental health professional, by talking it out with a peer, by sharing it with a parent, we only invite different perspectives and we can see it with more clarity. Then comes acceptance of imperfection, which is something, it's a profound concept, and I'm sure it's a practice of lifetime. We have, as a society, we have a fetish for perfection,
Yeah.
which is perhaps the most imperfect thing in human life. And we focus so much about perfection that we miss out on the journey of life.
Yeah.
And consequently, at a later time, when we have spent a lot of time on this earth, we realize that perfection is a myth. It's something which it's something extremely unimportant. So definitely, perfection of a work, perfection of doing something, perfection of living a way of life, all these things are important, but it's also very important to accept imperfection. Perfection is important, but fixation with perfection is not okay. It
Yeah.
can it can induce a lot of stress factors in our life. It's a pattern that invites stress in our life. We try
Absolutely.
to we try to fix things in a way which looks like perfect to our eyes and to our brain and to our understanding of life.
Yeah, but may or may not be realistic.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And perfection is a subjective thing.
Yeah.
What is perfect to me, it may not be perfect to you, Kashish. So it
Definitely.
can be hilarious to you. So,
Mm.
so it's
Yes.
subjective.
Yeah.
And of course, the next part and the thing which is the most close to my heart is practicing mindfulness. When we talk about mindfulness, it's a huge concept. I think we need a session with
Yeah.
mindfulness to make people aware of these practices. But when we talk about mindfulness, the only thing that I would like to mention here that most of the time when we are in a moment when we are going through something, we find our mind to be racing. That is, either we are thinking about our future, what is going to happen, what will
Mm,
happen if I do this, what will happen if I do not do this.
mm,
And either we think about future or we think about our past. We continuously keep on thinking why it happened to me, while we are aware of the fact that it has happened to me and it has also happened to many people on this earth, and we try to fix this, solve this puzzle which is beyond our control.
mm.
So mindfulness is all about being in the moment, investing
Absolutely.
100% of you in the moment,
Mm,
which is a strategy unnecessarily worrying about your future or pondering about your past. This is not going to, this is only wasting our present moment. This is wasting our present moment, and we cannot make the most out of the present moment if we are invested so much either in future or past. And when I'm sure there will be mindfulness related topics, discussions at Mana in future. And there are certain practices where you can train your brain to be mindful.
yeah,
And that can be extremely helpful as a coping strategy.
absolutely. Now, yes,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah. So we move to the last part of our discussion today. That is developing a support system, support structure, where, of course, when we are talking about a child or adolescent, it's very important to have family support. It's
Mm,
very important to have a family time. It's important to spend quality time with family, be it watching movie, be it not doing anything, be it playing, be it any activity, going out, holidays, anything. But there has to be regular family time where you can open up, reach out, discuss, be simple. So it's very important to have family time, and it can be a wonderful coping strategy. And it's important to have build network of friends, even for the parents. When we are talking about parents dealing with kids, they can have a network of friends where they can discuss each other's problems. Instead of competing with each other's success, each other child's success, we can use this network to make the quality of our life even more better.
yeah,
So a network, a peer group, a friend circle, that can help in reducing the stress in our life, and that can help us develop better coping strategies. Another very important thing, which is being discussed throughout the world, is engaging in creative activity. Engaging in creative activity, whatever it is, be it music, be it painting, be it dance, be it clay work, be it pottery, whatever it is. It's very important to be creative. And when I say create, engaging in creativity, it doesn't mean listening to music or seeing somebody dancing or observing somebody doing pottery. It's about actively participating in it, whatever it is, actively participating in it. You need not to be a wonderful dancer. Just dance for your own freedom. Then just open up and dance for your own freedom. And it's very important that we offer our kids that freedom to open up, to express. It's not important. We should not immediately come up with the feedback that you sing very badly. You
mm,
cannot dance. You should try something else. Let her dance. Let her express herself.
yeah,
So these creative things are extremely important, and it can be a wonderful coping strategy. And above everything, there are mental health professionals. There is a huge fraternity of mental health professionals. I understand that even in today's world, there's a huge stigma in consulting a mental health professional. But trust me, When there is a fever, you go to a doctor, you take a paracetamol and the fever reduces. It's just the same. And it's so obvious with the huge amount of stress and complexity of today's world, we will have need for mental health support in our life. And the more you accept it, the more you reach out to it, it's going to make your quality of life and your kids' quality of life, your family's quality of life even better. So that would be my invitation at the ending. Uh, don't be stigmatized. Take a step forward and ask for help. It's wonderful. It's a freedom to ask for help.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amrita. We have two
Thank you,
questions
Kashish.
which I want you
Sure.
to answer before the end. So, what are some ways in which, these healthier ways that we've talked about, what are these healthy ways that children or adolescents can use to deal with peer pressure? Which one of these so many we have discussed? What can they do? Because I think peer pressure is one of the things that children are going through. Probably all of us are going through, but adolescents are most affected by. So, what alternate can they use?
So when we talk about peer pressure, it's a component. The thing that creates peer pressure is the competitive feeling.
Hmm.
It's it's the urge for being better than the peer. So, and a lot of it comes from the parents, comes from the expectation of the parents from the child. So, it's very important for the parents to understand you cannot change the peer group. You cannot change the ways of life of the peers of your kid, but you can change, you can modify, you can help the kid with the way he will look at his life,
Yeah.
whether he would participate in that pressure or he would have a world where he has clarity of what he wants to do, how he wants to live,
Hmm.
and he simply doesn't participate in that pressure, in that rat race. That's the only thing. You cannot erase that rat race from the society. You can only prepare your child to live the life that he or she wants to, he or she feels like. What she feels as an adolescent may not be the same when he will grow up. But
Yeah.
whatever she feels now, she has a freedom to live it.
Yeah.
So I mean, the only thing that you can do is you can offer clarity to your child. If you can do it as a parent, go ahead and do it. It's very important uh, to hold the child in your arms and tell him that you need not to be better than anyone.
Hmm.
I would love you to have, I would love you to be the person who you want to be.
Hmm.
That gives a lot of confidence. He can realize at that point that he's not required to prove himself by being somebody else. He can be himself, and that's a lot empowering.
Yes, yes. I think the whole crux comes from a very different ground and idea that how to manage peer pressure is very very difficult, but though very very important in today's time, that all of us need to understand. The last question is, with so many healthy coping strategies that you have already told, how do you think, if you can give a small example or you can discuss this, how can parents communicate these strategies to their children? How do they tell them that instead of this it's this, or probably just let them know the information they've gathered from today's session?
Yes. So I'm happy that this question is asked uh, because when we talk about healthy coping strategies, it's not just about conceptually understanding the coping strategies, it's about practicing those strategies. You need not to sit with your kid and explain the concepts of healthy strategies with him, but it's important when you cannot teach him or her about healthy coping strategies at his age if he's an adolescent, but you can pick up one activity and the other, and you can pick up the coping strategies that he is resorting to, and you can explain how he can substitute this particular strategy by a healthier strategy. And you can explain how this healthy strategy is serving him better under the circumstances he is in. So it's not like you open a book and you teach them with healthy strategies. As Kashish mentioned earlier, that they learn from what they see. If
Yeah.
you understand these strategies and if you practice these strategies, and if you can keep on incorporating these strategies as a behavior in your child's life, that will help them to benefit.
Mm.
It's not about taking a class of healthy coping strategies with them. It's a practice, it's not theoretical. It's important to understand it theoretically, but implementation is a practice.
Yeah, perhaps the parents can let their children partner them, with these
Right?
activities, make them
Absolutely.
do it with your own selves. I think that's the best kind of mode of communication with children, is making them watch, let them mirror you, let them
Right.
feel the experience with you. And I think that's the best way possible to communicate them these various healthy coping strategies.
Right.
All right, that was a great session, Dr. Amrita, and
Thank
I
you,
think
Kashish.
it's impossible for me to brief it down into a few words, but I'm just going to let the audience know that we have already discussed children are growing, all of us are growing. The base comes in wherein we identify things, even if it's stress, even if it's coping mechanisms, even if it's, it could be anything. You need to identify what's working and what's not working. I think that's the first step towards any kind of growth and evolution that we are talking about here. So we have talked about so many things today, and I think the first step is to identify what is not working with you and not working between you and your child. So then you can probably focus on the solutions. Also, Manha is offering counseling sessions at discounted price for everybody who's joining and watching these sessions. So stay tuned for the next session, which will happen every week, Friday, 5 p.m., with more such accomplished speakers as Dr. Amrita Panda herself. Anything you want to add, Doctor, before we wrap?
Yes, Kashish, I would like to say to the viewers that we have learned about copings, we have learned about healthy copings, unhealthy copings today, but it's very important for us to understand that choosing a coping strategy, choosing a way depends on the individual we are talking about. And it shouldn't be what coping strategy a professional or a parent likes the most.
Hmm.
It's about what is going to serve the child the most. That is the most important thing, and that should be the focus. It's not
Absolutely.
about it's not about what we as adults feel right. It's about what will be the most beneficial thing for the child. That's the most important thing. And I would love to conclude the session with this focus that it has to be for the benefit of the child.
Completely true. I think this is the highlight. What might work for you might not work for your child. Please have an open ground, watch them, what works for them, and let them decide for their own selves. Be accepting, as Doctor has focused throughout the session. Accept them the way they are. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Panda. It was
Thank
really
you,
nice
Kashish.
interacting with you. And we hope with these sessions, we are also are taking our own steps to breaking the stigmas. Right. Thank you so much, the audience. We will see you next Friday, 5 p.m., with another great topic on parent child series. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.